Hey everyone, let's talk about the one thing that usually sends people running from Bitcoin. It's crazy price swings. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if that volatility isn't actually a bug, but its most powerful feature?
So that's the big question for today. Is Bitcoin's wild ride a fatal flaw that makes it way too risky? Or is it the very thing that gives it its incredible potential? Let's dive in.
Okay, so first things first, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. For most people, when you talk about Bitcoin's price, the conversation pretty much starts and ends with one feeling: fear.
And you know what? That's a totally understandable reaction. You see these headlines about huge price drops, and your brain just starts flashing these big red warning signs. It feels unstable, it feels unpredictable, and yeah, it feels dangerous. That's the story we're all used to hearing.
But now let's try something. What if we just take that whole idea and flip it completely on its head? What if the volatility isn't something broken that needs to be fixed, but it's actually the very engine driving Bitcoin's growth?
Think about it like this, right? On one side, you've got your low volatility stuff like cash. Super stable, for sure, but the chance for any real growth? Pretty much zero. Then on the other side, you have Bitcoin. Yeah, its short-term stability is low, but that volatility is directly connected to its massive potential for growth. You really can't have one without the other.
Mark Moss just nails it with this quote: "The volatility isn't a side effect. The volatility is the engine of the growth." See, it's not some annoying bug you just have to put up with. It is the feature. It's basically the price of admission for a shot at those huge returns. Here's a fantastic way to picture it. You wouldn't stand next to a rocket ship launching into space and complain that it's too loud, would you? Of course not. That incredible noise is a sign of incredible power. Well, it's the same idea here. An asset with the potential for that kind of growth is going to be loud. It's going to be shaky. The volatility is just the sound of the engine working.
Now look at this number, 50%. That's roughly Bitcoin's compounded annual growth rate over its entire life. That's just incredible. But, and this is the important part, here's the trade-off. If you want the potential for a 50% gain, you have to be able to handle the feeling of a 50% drop. They're two sides of the exact same coin.
Okay, so if volatility is the engine, how does it actually work? Well, it turns out it's not just random chaos. There's a rhythm to it, a predictable pattern that's actually a sign of life.
I love how Michael Saylor puts it: volatility is vitality. Think about it. An asset that doesn't move at all is a dead asset. All that movement, even the big scary drops, is just proof that there's a ton of energy in the system. It's proof of life. So what does a normal amount of movement look like? I want you to burn this number into your brain: 30%. A 30% drop in Bitcoin's price isn't a catastrophe. Historically, it's just an average Tuesday. It's a normal, reoccurring correction. See, that 30% drop isn't the final act. It's just step 2 in a cycle we've seen over and over. First, the asset hits a new high. Then it pulls back, about 30%, to set a higher low than it had before. And then it uses that new floor as a launch pad to shoot for an even higher high. It's a rhythm: 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
So here's the crucial reframe. Once you understand that cycle, the story you tell yourself completely changes. It's no longer the panic of, oh my gosh, Bitcoin is crashing. Instead, you can calmly observe, Bitcoin is just breathing. It's just doing its thing, a normal part of its healthy life.
Now, all of this probably sounds pretty logical on paper, right? The math isn't that complicated. But that brings us to the really hard part: actually surviving the sensation of it all. Why is it so tough to live through these swings?
I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? If we can see the pattern, if we understand the logic, why do so many of us panic and sell at the absolute worst possible moment? Well, the answer has nothing to do with charts and everything to do with our own psychology.
It really comes down to this quirk in our brains called loss aversion. Psychologists have found that we are basically hardwired to feel the pain of a loss about twice as powerfully as we feel the pleasure from a gain of the same size. So that 30% drop feels like a 60% punch to the gut, while a 30% gain just feels kind of nice. It's because our brains weren't built for trading crypto. They were built for survival. We're designed to spot the one lion hiding in the grass, not to sit back and admire the 99 beautiful non-threatening flowers. That instinct makes us zoom in on the one red candle in a chart full of green ones, and it creates this huge gap between how we feel and what the data actually says. When the market drops, that survival mode kicks in and emotion grabs the steering wheel from logic. So, If the real fight is with our own emotional wiring, what's the weapon? How do you win? Well, it all comes down to one single, incredibly powerful idea: conviction. It is your single strongest asset in a market like this. Think of it this way: volatility actually has a job to do. It's the market's natural filter. It's designed to shake out the people who aren't really prepared, the ones who are running on pure emotion, the ones who are borrowing too much money, or the ones who just don't have the patience. It's a system that rewards the people who can endure the ride.
And this brings us to what might be the single most important takeaway from this entire thing. You cannot borrow someone else's conviction. You just can't. If your only reason for being in this is because you saw some guy on social media or your friend told you to, that belief is going to completely disappear the first time the price drops 30%. Real staying power, the kind that gets you through the storm, only comes from doing your own research and building your own solid thesis.
We can actually give this a name. Let's call it volatility panic. It's that critical moment where your brain misfires. You see the market taking a normal, healthy breath, but your survival instinct screams that the whole system is collapsing. That exact moment of panic is where people make devastating mistakes.
So, that leaves us with one last question to think about. When you're dealing with an asset as powerful as Bitcoin, what's the real challenge? Is it about mastering the charts and understanding all the math? Or is it the much tougher, much more personal battle of just mastering your own emotions? Because that, right there, is the key to reframing volatility. Thanks for watching.